Hello, everybody. You guys are all unmuted, so welcome. Hello, everyone out there, and welcome to another episode of Move, Crush, Count. Today, we are live on all kinds of channels: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn. So wherever you are at, if you want to ask questions, if you want to make comments, do so. We do not get on this live stream all the comments that come in, depending on which channel you're on. We type them in anyways, and we can always come back. If we don't see it live on air, we can come back and answer them for you later on the different social networks. Today's interview is sponsored by J&L Marketing, a digital and direct marketing agency that helps you outsmart your competition so you can stop overspending, so you can move the crowd, crush the competition, and count the money. I want you to make sure to check out movecrushcount.com for more, and make sure you hit the subscribe button so you get notified on future guests and future episodes. The title of today's interview is How to Turn Your Top Fixed Operations Challenges into Opportunities Fast. My name's Scott Joseph. I'm talking with you live with fixed operations expert. He's the lead consultant for the JM&A Group, Robert Peterson. And we're going to talk about new developments when it comes to fixed operations, when we talk about improving processes, client experiences, training, leadership skills, all designed to achieve industry-leading revenue growth when it comes to fixed ops. We're also joined by the owners of the Ray Automotive Group, Mark and Ray Scarpelli, along with their fixed ops director, Jack Butler. Let me add Ray in here. There we go.
Awesome.
Welcome with us. Welcome, Ray. Welcome, Robert, Mark, Jack. Thank you all for joining us.
It's good to be here, Scott. Thanks.
Yeah. And so I want to talk real quick, and then I want everybody to give us some quick background on yourselves. But Robert, you're a well-known expert when it comes to fixed ops. And with the Ray Auto Group, I've heard some of the numbers that you've told me. What they've accomplished in a short period of time is outstanding, and I want to get into how they did it. Everyone here has graciously agreed to share on this interview to talk about how to turn their top challenges into opportunities, share their experiences and their knowledge. So thanks again for joining us on the interview. Let's jump right in and start talking about some of the latest ideas when it comes to fixed operations. So let's get a little bit about your background, and I don't know what order you guys are on the screen here, so I'll call you out, and let's do a few minutes of this. Robert, tell us a little bit about your background and experience.
Oh boy, it started a long time ago. So back when I was a sophomore in high school, believe it or not, I needed a job to, and I was in a cooperative education program in high school, actually. And I remember the teacher walks up and says, "Hey, you like working on cars, right?" And because I would take an auto shop, I'm like, "Yeah, I love working on cars." He's like, "Well, I got an opportunity at a car dealership. Are you interested in having that conversation?" So fast forward, I got a job working, and I thought I was going to be a technician, and it turns out I ended up working as a shipping and receiving clerk in part. So what I thought was going to happen, what really happened were two different things. But I'm really thankful for the journey that it led me on. And that was the beginning of this journey. It was a job to get me through high school, and here I am. 41 years later. Doing all the jobs and parts, and service advisor, service director, manager, bought and sold stores, built stores, did all that. I've been with JM&A in a fixed operations capacity for 18 years, and I currently oversee a good portion of the country in our fixed operations consulting and development with our dealer partners. It's been a great journey, and Mark, Ray, Jack, thank you so much for being with us today.
Sure. And so I also want to add something to you guys, and I've said this multiple times. So my own stores work with the JM&A Group as well. I've never seen a company as large as you guys where every single person I've met is so professional, so willing to help. I don't know if they've got the secret formula to training, hiring. It's probably a combination of both, but it is company wide, and it's a huge company. So hats off to you guys. I wanted to do that shout out because I appreciate working with you guys. And it's been an outstanding relationship for a very long time.
Thank you, Scott.
Mark,
Appreciate that.
yeah. Mark, tell us a little bit about yourself.
You know what? My career is started and is currently at our family of dealerships. My first job in the dealership was parts department, washing cars, those kinds of things. And college, went to Northwood University. And right out of college, I was hired out of college to work for General Motors. I was stationed in Boston for a couple of years. So I was an Oldsmobile rep. Like to think they didn't go out of business because of me, but needless to say, I was there for a couple of years.
Were you there, Mark, when they went out of business? That's the question.
No, I was not.
Okay.
I was not. We were a Oldsmobile dealership in our Antioch location during that time period, but came back to the store and we had expanded at that point in time. Ray will tell you more about our expansion, I'm sure. But during that time too, came up through the ranks, sales manager. I wrote service. Along the way, I was the chairman of the Chicago Automobile Trade Association, which ran the auto show here in Chicagoland. I also was the chairman of the National Automobile Dealer Association for a few years as well, served on a national level. Very proud of our industry and really have had a wide gamut of experience in our industry and love it to death. And, we're blessed to have a great consultant in Robert as well as JM&A. They are top notch. When we endeavored on doing this, it was one choice for us. So we're thrilled to be here and to talk about Robert and the team as well.
Mark, you and I got our start in auto the exact same way. I too, back then it was called Lot Boy, right? So, that's what I started out doing is I hated it. I hated that job and all I wanted to do was sell cars. So,
Right.
Ray, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, Scott, very similar background. We kind of grew up the same way with the broom in our hands. And we moved through the departments. I worked in the parts department. I worked in the parts department, also the service department, and probably my favorite stay was the body shop. I got to mix Bondo and I was telling Jack, our service director, when I'd come out of the body shop back then, we didn't have smoke eaters or anything. So I would kind of ingest some of the smoke, if you know what I mean. So I would come out of there and so I cough a little and choke a little, but taught me that, listen, this is a great department to be in and learn, but it's also great to get out of here too. So it was a fun experience growing up in the car business. But I also went to Northwood and
Nice.
met my wife there, so that was a great experience there. And after Northwood, I went through all the departments, the remaining departments in the dealership, and we got to purchase our first store, other than the store that our dad had bought into as a partner and eventually bought the whole thing, is the store in Fox Lake, which is a Chevrolet dealership. And then since then, Mark and I and the rest of our family have bought 4 dealerships now.
Nice.
And what's really exciting is my son is also involved, and so now we get to see the third generation grow up in the business. So it's pretty cool.
That's great. You had mentioned that meeting your wife or future wife at your current wife, future at the time at Northwood, was a great experience. The real question is, was it a great experience for her?
Well, I think you'd have to patch her in at this point, Scott. She may have a different input there.
All right. Jack, how about yourself?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for having me here. I've kind of grew up like the rest of these guys. I started in high school in the parts department. It seems like the ground floor a lot of places.
Yep.
And kind of grew up through that and ended up out in service. And I've pretty much done all of those things that everybody has. Unfortunately, I still get to hike cars, so I'm still a lot boy a lot of times. But
So are we.
in all seriousness,
Yes.
I had
It
worked
never ends.
I worked for a company for a long time and got lucky enough to fall into place here at the Raymond Auto Group with Mark and Ray, and just a wonderful experience and great team. And I know that Scott, you were talking about Robert's team at JM&A and the professionalism there. It is outstanding here. They are stand-up ownership, stand-up management. Everybody I've met within this organization is just really, really a great place to be, and I'm really excited to continue down that road.
So let's talk a little bit, because I know you guys have experienced a lot of growth in fixed ops. Let's go before that growth, that big jump started for you. What were some of the bigger challenges you faced then? And I'll let any one of you guys answer, whoever's best for that.
I don't think the challenges ever end, right?
Yeah.
Jack, you want to start?
I'd be happy to. It's two really, really big Chevy store, a CDJR store that was just growing, and a Kia store that had so much opportunity that we just needed to, start steering the ship in the right direction. So really, for me anyway, the time management part of it and trying to get everybody going in the same direction at the same time. Ray and I had a little conversation about whack-a-mole this morning about, hey, you fix this over here and something jumps up over there. And I think that was what was a lot of it. Just when you thought you had something going in the right direction, something else would rear its head and trying to move beyond that.
What did you guys do to overcome some of that? Or I guess make it more manageable, or to improve your time or your efficiency on that stuff?
Well, I'm going to throw some kudos out here at Robert real quick. Don't expect it all the time, Robert, but when Ray and Mark came to me and said that, hey, we were thinking about, we're thinking about doing this, and not that I was skeptical, but I was skeptical.
You were, Jack.
That's a good word for it.
Look, I was not the happiest guy in the corner, but I was going to go along. They told me everything was going to be okay, and in all honesty, it has been better than I ever could have imagined that it was going to be. Working with Robert has been. There's been a hiccup here or a hiccup there, but we really get along with each other, and there's no there's no mixing anything there. I mean, if something should be something, or something shouldn't be something, that's where we are.
Jack, if I could add too, I think part of this was, we had in our fixed operations have been relatively good over the years, and with the advent of the front end department, a lot of manufacturer OEM programs with SFE type programs and bonus money, we got into a situation, I think, like many dealers who were going for that bonus money or some of those bonus levels. That being said, not that we didn't pay attention to our service departments as well as we should have, but you got on that track versus the fixed operation track. As things started to wane in the front end, we needed to bone up our fixed chops, if you will. And timing was everything for sure. Ray and I over the years have met Robert and Shirley with JM&A. We've been with them for over 30 years. And, we were good, but we weren't that good. We needed to get better. And that was really the primary move for us to migrate into looking into fixed ops more, seeing what was new in the market. Because in our case, average is not where we want to be. We want to be extraordinary and make sure that we're doing it right from a CSI perspective, surely profitability, and longevity with our employees. They've been there for a very long time, and I think the program really works out well for us. We're very involved.
Let's go back to this. And any one of you, what was the first? I love, Jack, that you were skeptical at first, right? And I think anytime you're bringing in something from the outside where change is inevitable, probably are going to be recommended. And let's face it, you reach out to a company because you're looking for change, you're looking for opportunities for growth and improvement. Where was the first big breakthrough for you where you were like, you know what, this makes sense. I like what's happening here. What was there something that happened? Was it a moment in time? What was it?
If I could add,
yeah,
I remember the conversation that Jack and I had all too well.
I think the turning point is when the weighted goals got installed at the dealerships. That seemed to be a turning point from my perspective, to see not only that the employees could see it, our advisors could see their goals on a daily basis, but their peer group could see the goals. And I think that was a big agent of change, because oftentimes, in the front end, we're very numbers orientated. We're very, how many units, how many grosses, how many ups, what's your closing ratio. But when we get to the fixed operations, before JM&A and Robert, before we all started together on this path, we didn't, we weren't organized that way. And that's from my standpoint is a big turning point. I don't know what you guys thought.
Well, I'll just echo in there, as we were starting this relationship, and again, I've known Mark and Ray for a really long time. And Ray, to your point, the weighted goals for our teams, right? The people, when they go to work, they want to know what's expected, right? And by bringing our team in and working with your team, and your team has been just so gracious. It's been a great fit right from the get-go. We bring the how and the what. And at the end of the day, we also wanted to make sure that everybody was connected on part of how much of this pie am I responsible for? And it no doubt, Mark, Jack, Ray, it gets uncomfortable at times, right? Not because you're trying to upset the apple cart, but because our job as leaders is to push the teams to a place that they never thought they could get to, right? And when we get them to that point, they go, oh my gosh, this is amazing. This was not as hard as I thought it was going to be. And those early conversations are difficult to have. But, Jack and I work seamlessly together. I'll chorus with that, so that together we're able to lead the teams and be able to get them to a place that they never thought possible. And the results over the last few months have just been spectacular.
Being uncomfortable.
Go ahead.
I was going to just say that being uncomfortable is when they're uncomfortable, they're seeing results, and there's a payoff too. And so it's worth getting uncomfortable for. And I think our people are starting to see that.
Yeah, it's a total mind shift, right? Because instead of just coming into work and doing our job, now I understand how I fit into this. I understand where my piece is. I understand if I'm ahead or behind. And again, when we first talked about this, it just, we go into the sales meeting rooms. There's this big board that's got everybody's names on it and how many deals they've closed for the month, and over on the right hand side what their goal is and how they're pacing. And in fixed operations and in service specifically, that's not something that's in the ordinary. And so it takes a lot of support, and all three of you provide a lot of support and coaching for that. Because it's not an easy shift for people on a day-to-day basis, especially in our line of work.
And the support part of it is you surely have it. On the other hand, there's a little bit of uncomfortability from a upper management perspective, and also the dealer perspective too. We agreed to endeavor on the new program, but there's some new perspectives and avenues that we needed to look at too, and embrace them. And if we didn't, the whole thing would crash and burn. So we have to have total buy-in too. Let's face it, it's not an inexpensive endeavor. On the other hand, it's money you cannot spend from our perspective. We'll do much better because of the program. So total buy-in from top to bottom or bottom to top, however you want to say it, that needs to happen. And in our case, it has, truly.
Correct. Yep. I would agree with that.
And huge growth rarely comes from comfortable situations, right? I mean, so it does require you to lean into that, and in order to level up and achieve, much higher levels of success. I think about it, and this goes for, doesn't matter if it's in fixed ops, it doesn't matter if it's for other things that we need with marketing. In a perfect world, none of us would need any help from anyone to do anything, right? If there's no dealer that wants to have to do marketing. There's no dealer that wants to bring in outside help in terms of process improvement and things like that. The reality is, like you guys said earlier, sometimes you feel like you're playing whack-a-mole, right? And that's because stuff happens during the day, and you can plan for, I'm going to have process improvements here, and I'm going to do this, and we're going to root cause and analysis, and we're going to do all these things. But then real day hits and you get distracted. And sometimes it just comes down to, sometimes it's a knowledge and experience thing. Sometimes it's a capacity thing. And so I think, which kind of leads into my next question, which is specific to you, Robert. So let's say, let's take the Ray Auto Group, right? Automotive group here.
Okay.
They want to bring you in because they're looking to become industry leaders in all the important fixed ops metrics. That's the goal for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what does that process, when you take on something like that, what's the best way for other dealers to do, if they tried to do it on their own, what's that process look like?
Great question. To me, it starts with people, right? I mean, we're in a people business where it's a customer centric business that we're in, and you got to have the right people in the right seats. And what I didn't want to, when we start a venture with a dealer, right, a prospective client, we spend a lot of time with their people, getting to know their skills, their competencies, their behaviors, really understanding, is it a square peg trying to get in a round hole, or is it a round peg in the round hole that just doesn't understand how to make it all work, right? So that we're able to really fine tune the deliverable at the end of the day to the guest coming into the service drive. So without the right people in place, it makes it very, very, very difficult. And from there, it's understanding the processes that are there today and making sure that everybody understands what to do, when to do it, how to do it, is so key. And the team that I work with, that's what they spend their 99% of their time doing.
Can I ask a quick question on process?
Sure.
When you're going in and you're trying to analyze the current process, this is what they're doing prior to you guys, any recommendations you might make.
Mm-hmm.
What goes into that analysis and that measurement? Like, what are you guys doing to really get a good picture of that?
So we're in the drive, we're in the dealership, right? We spend a couple, 3 days in the store, really observing all the interactions that the team members have with the guests, right? How they are greeting the guest in the drive. Are we doing a good walk around with the guests? So not only do we get to know the guests, but we're also understanding how they use their car, what their buying motives are, what that closing of the prime item sounds like. So that way we can make sure that we're in line, so we get the right information to the right technician. We analyze that. What is their authorization process, or multi-point inspection process, updating, work distribution, and then lastly, what does the active delivery look like, so that we can make sure that last conversation we have with the guest coming in is a positive one, that they're very happy that they chose us to do business today, and that they want to come back and do business with us tomorrow if they needed to. So that's really what we analyze, and we sit down with owners and with people like Jack and say, look, here's what you're doing really good, right? And here's where we know that if we can make a few tweaks along the way, there's going to be a residual return on your investment that will make not only you happy, but your team members happy as well, because they'll be more engaged with what they're doing. And so far, it's a good recipe for success because we've seen some great results around the country, especially with these two gentlemen here.
So I've got another question, and any one of you probably qualified to answer this, but so we've got 2 Chevy stores here. We've got a Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep store here, right? And then we've also got the Kia store. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Yep.
I didn't miss any, I don't think. So what are some of what's the relationship in terms of when you go in and recommend different processes, right? What's a relationship between the stores? I guess what I'm looking at, what are the things that seem to be, we're doing this same thing at all these stores, but what are some of the nuances that might be different with the stores?
Well, there's, you know, a couple of the stores have been around much longer than 2 of the other stores. Clientele are essentially the same, different towns. And, you know, we have legacy employees that have been, some of them have been around for a long time. Others are relatively new hires. So you have the whole gamut of all of that going on. And so you have to kind of move and shake a little bit for, you know, the flavor of the store. You know, I'm at the Antioch locations, and the Kia location in particular is very, very different from the Chevrolet store. The clientele seems to be, they're great. They're just different than the Chevrolet location. The Chevrolet store has been there for 62 years or whatever it's been. So you've got you know, it seems to be younger at Kia. So just there's some nuances that we adapt to and we roll with.
And I will say the CDJR store in Fox Lake, as opposed to the Chevy store, you know, the Jeep customer is a lot different than a Chevy customer, a lot different, and a Ram customer as well. So, you know, it's, you know, even the metrics from manufacturer, 2 hours, you know, a ticket, a repair order, and labor is, you know, a standard at Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram, but at Chevy 1.8 is. So, you know, they look, you know, there's different expectations for the manufacturers as well.
So Jack, let me ask you, you mentioned earlier, one of the reasons that or you wanted help in certain areas is you're trying to take on a big project. You're trying to get everybody rowing in the same direction, right? And Mark and Ray, you guys had just alluded to the fact that some of the stores had been there a while. So you've got legacy employees that have been there a very long time versus new. And sometimes it's easier to get the newer employee to change because they haven't had a certain process as long as the longer tenured, right, employee. So I think, I don't know if there's a business out there that does not struggle with my question I'm about to ask. So I'm curious as to how you guys help solve that. And Robert, you can chip in as well. How, as you started implementing these changes, how did you get the team to buy in to where you did have everyone row it? Because you don't accomplish, and we need to get back to what has been accomplished here, but you don't accomplish what you guys have accomplished in terms of growth without that happening. So how did you do that?
So real quick with this, and you know, the person, and I'll be honest with you, Robert's going to know exactly what I'm going to say here when I say it, Mark too. The person that we thought that was going to be our biggest problem was our biggest rah-rah at the end. Boy, he turned around. Our Kia service manager, David, he had some real reservations about everything when we started. He was one of our newer employees. He had not been here a long time, was not enamored with having a consulting group come in. But the way Robert matched up the consultant that went into that store, and him and David, I think they talk to each other on the weekends now. It's really an amazing thing. But that is what everybody was talking about. Mark and Ray were saying we had to have buy-in at the beginning. And even though with me, it was probably more like it's going to look like buy-in, it actually became buy-in pretty quick because the numbers started to turn around. But it was matching people and personalities. And Robert did a fantastic job with that. I will admit that.
Well, thanks, Jack. I appreciate the compliment. and you know, Scott, just it's something we do with every client that we work with. I spend time with their leadership, understand their personnel, and really align the team with who's going to be the best fit. Because the last thing you want is oil and water when you start working in a new relationship, especially when there's so much at stake every day. And fortunately, we've been spot on. And haven't had any major changes and challenges. So, but that comes from leadership as well. You know, Ray and Mark and Jack set the table well with their teams, and it wasn't, you know, and it's not like, hey, let's go play nice at the playground, right? Because you're dealing with people, and it makes it challenging. And Jack, you chuckle because you and I had that conversation, and without that full-blown support, Mark, you said it so eloquently earlier, without that full-blown support, it does make that challenging. However, we do line our teams up with the right people in the stores so that we can get off the ground running, and everybody gets vested very quickly. And yes, those two team members do talk to each other on the weekends. So
what do you guys think are some of the bigger challenges facing fixed operations right now?
In my own personal opinion, it is people, and we have a.
That's on the news. That's on the variable side too.
but it really is what it is, and I don't care whether it's the guy that's sweeping the floor or one of our guests that come in that's been coming here for 25 years, coming out of this this crazy time that we've been through in the last couple of years. People are, they're skeptical. They're hard to accept things, and we're trying to make some changes, not for the better. And yes, look, everybody wants to be more profitable. There's no question about that. But I think that either Mark or Ray will tell you in a heartbeat that they'll give up their profit to keep a customer. Because in the long run, we know what we need those people long term. So us getting everybody onto the same page again after being in Illinois. So, I'll put that out there too. We've been in a hibernation mode for a while, and, now that we're out of it, and you can start to see people coming to life. And I think that it's going to get better, but we've laid the groundwork for moving to the next level continuously. But that is where we need to be. We need our people to meet the guests that are coming in.
It's funny you say people. It's not funny, but it's true that you say people because, I guess years ago, right? If you needed to grow and you could grow and you had I guess there was the market demand for it, you could always just add more bays, right? So Robert and I were we were at the Business Bourbon and Cigar event, and one of the mastermind topics that everyone was talking about was how do we grow? And one of the points that you had to come up with solutions. How do we grow without adding bays? Because it really doesn't matter if you can add bays when you don't have anybody to put in them. So, there's only so many technicians right there that are out there. We're struggling. One of the challenges, right, is filling the bays we have with the right people. So I think that's a good point. Is there any other challenges you guys see out there outside of people?
The way that the market is today as well, we're high intensity new car sales. Well, new cars are not rolling in like they had been. So we've migrated, like I'm sure a lot of other dealers, into big used car sales. We always sold a lot of used cars. On the other hand, that's a new set of of problems or challenges for us.
Mm-hmm.
Is that used car customer gonna be as loyal as particularly a new car customer who's under a new car warranty? That period. How do we make sure that they know the Ray and Raymond philosophy of pit stops and free car washes and loaner cars, and the list goes on? But how do we educate, if you will, to let them know to come back to us versus going to a tire store or whatever? So that is really, that hasn't even hit us yet. We're selling a bunch of used cars, but that's 6 months down the road. Where are they going to choose to go? How do we make sure they know what they got with the total package with us, with the Ray and Raymond brand in our case? That's another challenge. So
it's a huge challenge. I recently wrote an article, 11 tips to improve client or to increase client retention. And one of them touches on exactly what you said. You've got to educate and set expectations for whatever the process is up front, but then educate them as to what you do, how you can benefit and help them. And that has to happen continuously. Are there things you guys are doing? I'm glad you're bringing this up because it hasn't hit the dealer world yet. Everyone's, killing it right now, doing awesome. And it's easy no one's thinking, and the loyalty will be down. All you have to do is look at the loyalty rate, what happens when someone gets out of their new car warranty. And that usually is the big steep decline, right? So if that's not there, my question to you guys is, what are you guys doing currently? What are some of the things you're doing currently to help offset that?
Scott, I wanted to just point out too, another issue is a lot of cars are being sold out of our market. Not only us, but by every buddy in this business now. So your point on, loyalty and retention is even more and more important. One of the things that we do to try to keep some retention and loyalty is sounds small, sounds like a basic thing, is loaner cars. We still provide loaner cars in our service departments. Well, it doesn't sound like a big thing, but it is a big thing because there are not a lot of new cars. So we've got a dedicated fleet at all of our stores of loaner cars available to try to hold on to whatever we can. And those customers that are within our trading radius and some that are, that we didn't sell, we're getting plus business because of that.
It's another great point. A great point. Robert, you got anything on this? Any fixed operations challenges because you're working with multiple stores is the reason I asked this. So there might be something universal you're seeing out there that we haven't mentioned.
Jack brought up people, and to me, I see turnover as a real challenge, right? In how we hire and how we recruit, making sure we get the right people in the right seats all the time, right? Mark, you brought up the used car customer, and so did you, Ray, about cars being sold out of market. When we do studies, we see that it's less than 2% of the used car customer comes back to the dealership that they bought it, which is just an unbelievable opportunity. And guys, we got into this conversation last time we were together, and how much there needs to be such an important focus on getting those people back. But I will say the one thing that I've seen with these three gentlemen is they found a way to make doing business with them easier, right? So they're responsive on the phones when people are calling. When people pull in, they're taking without appointments. They're not, if it's a Chrysler that pulls into the Chevy store, they're not turning them away. It's having an open door for everybody that pulls into the service department, because if my technician, if their mother's car broke down and it wasn't the car that I sold, they definitely would be able to fix that vehicle. So understanding that we are taking care of people, and understanding that the vehicle is their number one mode of transportation, having that mindset. What I see is dealers that embrace that philosophy, much like the group that we have with us today, excel and are growing in their marketplace, and the dealers that don't are not, and they're wondering just what they can do differently. And again, that's where my team comes in to help, right? How do we create the right customer-centric processes so that no matter what vehicle is pulling into our service drive, we're there to take care of, and we make it a positive interaction with our service consultants.
Where do you guys feel like the biggest opportunities for specific to fixed ops? Where are those right now? The top ones that if other dealers just did this, and this, maybe the top 2 or 3.
I have to go with at least the top one is retention. The second one is going to be processes. And then if you're going to talk a third, it's got to be marketing, because, we have to market to, as Mark and Ray both put it, are people that are not necessarily in our area. Now we're not going to, try and get somebody from Kentucky to come back to Northern Illinois, but, somebody that, 25, 30 miles away that normally wouldn't be our customer. We want to make sure that we're offering them all of the conveniences to come back. Hey, bring your car in. We'll give you a car for the day. Oh, wait, you can't make it here. Let's go pick it up. One of the other things that we started doing is we started doing pickups and drop-offs with customers. And, the last couple of years really brought us to that. People didn't want to come into the dealership, so we had to think outside of the box. And a lot of people did the same thing, but we made it available because we have a fleet of loaner cars, and we could get out to those people and drop off, pick up. We were disinfecting cars and, just doing everything that we could to make people more comfortable, make them feel part of the family, because that's what we need to do on a regular basis. Second one is every car, every time, the process. You got to walk through it. You got to greet the customer in the aisle. You got to walk around the car. You got to do the MPVI. You got to make sure that they know what's going on with their car. You got to applaud them when it needs nothing. That they're taking care of stuff, whether it's here, there, or wherever it is. If they're taking your advice, they're taking your advice. But those are the things that we really, really need to do.
And a lot of these things we all, as a group, communicated pretty well is on social media. We told our story during this time very well on social media to let people know what was setting us apart, what made us different. And I think we've got a lot of traction because of it.
Yeah. And some of these things you guys are mentioning, I assume, are the universal things that, while there might be some unique things that are different about each one of the stores, right? These processes you guys are mentioning right here are universal, I would imagine, throughout.
If I can just tag in, Scott, one of the things I hear from dealers that we do business with, and heard it from Mark and Ray, help us make it easy for people to do business with us, right? We find ways to make it so difficult in our industry and in many industries, but that's what I hear is, how can you help us make it easier for our consumers? And I can tell you that they've done a great job.
That's what we all want. I mean, Jack, you had mentioned, and I can't resist, you brought up marketing. So I have to ask you. So here you are, and most of the time if I go into a market and I pull up oil change near me, right? It's not a term that you might bid on if you're doing any type of paid search advertising, because it's too general. Whereas, in my opinion, one of the reasons that the Jiffy Lubes of the world, the independent repair shops dominate that space is because that is what they bid on, right? And let's face it, these are big national chains with huge budgets. The average dealer can't necessarily, they're not going to be able to outspend giants like that. So what are some of the things you guys do to offset that?
So, and Ray just brought it up, and we have a huge presence on social media, whether TikTok or Facebook, Pinterest, all of these things that we're out doing, along with, we try and build the reputation inside of our websites also. We've recently hooked up with some fixed ops companies that are building content on our website, which helps our SEO get to the top of the Google search and move along with there. Our goal, I think, as a group, especially in 2022 here, is to be more digital. And as crazy as that sounds, everybody's doing emails and this and that, but I want to drive people to our website and then keep them there as long as we can, whether they come to make that oil change appointment and end up buying a Camaro. Let's go. Let's see what's on there, and let's lead them around what we got going on. So that's that's where my focus has been, and trying to be and drive from the inside. And it's pretty cost effective. I mean, we're still spending a lot of money getting to where we got to go, but I think that it really is the wave of the future, and the things that we experienced during COVID, like Ray was bringing up, the social media that we ran out and started, we didn't put a toe in. We jumped in head first, and it was amazing that what we got out of that when we were done.
And we have a special guest that just appeared on the show. Do we have a name?
That's Lily.
Lily. All right. How you doing, Lily? That's awesome.
Oh my goodness.
This is great. I love social media because to me, it's the great equalizer. It allows the smallest of company to compete with the largest of company. All it takes is time, creativity. So the more creative, the more you dive into, like you guys said, in terms of maybe studying the numbers, where are people engaging, and providing relevant content. It is truly just a great equalizer on that. And I also love what you're saying about looking at your website. To me, one of the biggest challenges and biggest opportunities that dealers have is in their fixed ops on the website. It's an afterthought for most website companies.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at that, so I know that there are companies out there. One of the things that we do at J&L, we've put a lot of time and attention and money behind working with sites that go right on. Because if for instance, if I click on some type of offer that you've made, and I go to your page, and I've got to start scrolling down to try and find the content that's relevant, that coupon or that savings special, and I don't see it in the first 3 to 5 seconds, I'm probably bouncing, and that's just raising your cost, right? Your advertising cost. So there are techniques around that. I don't want to make this a J&L commercial, even though they're our sponsor. But I love that your guys are paying attention to that. I think it's spot on.
If I could just tag in real quick, Scott, we also notice the same thing. And part of what we do, and this isn't about JM&A, but we're talking to dealers out there. We take a look at dealers' websites. We do exactly what you just talked about. How easy is it for us to find the service department, be able to make an appointment? What does that process look like? So we encourage dealers, even that aren't doing business with us, please log into your own website and take a look at it. And if you were a customer, are you happy with the navigation through it? And if not, make it customer friendly. We see that so many times. Heck, we've seen a dealer's website, Scott, where another dealer's information is on the website because they're the people that manage their site just copied and pasted the wrong dealership info on there. And when we presented that to a dealer, they were flabbergasted and embarrassed, right? So I just encourage everybody that's listening and watching, take some time, go on your website, take a look at it, and make sure it's in good shape.
That happens a lot more than you think. I'll tell you, one thing I love about the auto industry, everything we're talking about here, if someone's listening or watching this show and they're not in auto, there's not one thing we've talked about that does not apply to their business.
Nope.
So I think there's so much to be learned from the auto industry, from sales, from marketing, and vice versa, by the way. I think there's a lot the auto industry can learn. Specifically, we talk about making things easier, right? From some of the larger retail, the most popular one to bring up is Amazon, right? How do they make it easier and more convenient, putting out less effort to buy things? I think we can do the same. So I think there's a lot to learn in that direction as well. What new discoveries are you guys? Is this the end of the road? Is this the end? Is this where it's like, all right, we just got to make things easier, and that's it. That's the end. That's all. Or is there some new things you guys are learning and discovering every day that are popping up?
I'll yield first. I literally just left the meeting prior to this, and the topic of conversation was just this. And we all agreed that the second you think you found your destination in business is the day that you're kind of done, right? You've got to constantly be, the words of Stephen Covey, always sharpening your saw and making sure that you're seeing the unseen before anybody else does. And I know in our company, we evaluate our processes, what we do weekly, not towards overbearing, but enough to where we have relevant conversation about is what we're doing working, and if not, what ideas are out there. And I got to plug one part of our company, and it's Dealer Talent Services. Right, we have found a way now. Jack and I sit back and with Mark and Ray, we review the KPIs all the time. Hours per repair order, dollars, all of those things, right? And we now have found a way to start to measure job competency levels. And so that's one of the things that we are literally just dipping our toe into the pond as it relates to not only understanding the metrics and how people do their job, but where they see themselves skilled at, where their areas of opportunity are. So that when we start to really work with them on a one-on-one basis, we can really fine tune that developmental plan so that we not only can they grow in their output, but they can also grow in their job confidence, which everybody in this room knows that people work with us. If we teach them and we show them that there's a better way of doing it, and we invest in them, they're going to invest in us with staying with us a long time. And at the end of the day, that's the goal, is to reduce that turnover and get everybody on the same page.
Well, all you guys got to do is teach everybody what you guys do.
That's so easy.
All you got to do is take your manual and say, "Hey, do this."
Yeah, right. It's so easy.
We talk about website navigation and how easy is it for us to find, but we're one of the few industries now, not one of the few, but I mean, there's a lot of industries, if you try to call them, you'll never get a hold of anybody, right? You have to do 100% online. So we are an industry where it's a combo, it's a hybrid. You can either do everything you want online, and we're trying to do more of that, obviously, if that's what clients want. But at the same time, they can call us. And we talked a lot about this, Robert, at the event as well. And that is, think about the hassle of our clients when they call us. I'm curious to see how you guys have tried to improve, if that was part of the process improvement, because a lot of times, I call your store, right? I don't know who I'm supposed to talk to, right? And then all of a sudden they go through this phone tree of passing me around to 5 different people, and it's frustrating, right? It's not a good experience. So is that part of the process? Is that some of the improvements that happened? And if so, how?
Well, we have BDCs in all of our locations to a certain extent, but each one of those is a little bit of a hybrid as to the next one. How they take phone calls, when they take phone calls, who they take phone calls from. But I'll tell you, the best thing that you can do is when you call one of those businesses, have one of your advisors call one of those guys and say,
correct,
call Johnny's Ford down the street and to ask them, what's going on with our used car that we sent down there for a warranty repair. And then make sure that you never treat anybody like that. Oh, that's Joe's repair order. You got to talk to Joe. Well, okay, can I talk to Joe? Well, he's off until tomorrow.
I think that was one of the first steps that the consultants that worked with us from JM&A did, is the day before that they actually came into the store, they called all the stores, and they called and they went online to see how easy it was to either call or make an appointment via our website. And so some learnings certainly came out of that. I think we did pretty well. I don't know, Jack or maybe Mark or Robert could speak on that. I think we did pretty well generally on that.
So Yeah, and it's a big challenge for dealers for any business, really, Scott. You hit the nail on the head. So what our team does is really work with people in Jack's position and Mark and Ray, and really understand what their ultimate goals are. And then if they have a BDC, work with the BDC, make sure they understand the importance of their job. When you think about that job, it's not a high glory job in a dealership, and it doesn't take much for a few phone calls before people get tired of answering the phone. But really helping everybody understand how many guests we need to have come into service, and then having the manager really review how many appointments coming in. So that when that phone rings, they understand where it all fits. Again, I go back to people knowing what to do, when to do it, how to do it, and why they need to do that. So that it all fits together, so that they understand that they're the driver behind what that dealership needs from a customer engagement piece. And it's so vital.
Well, one reason you need to have another company do that is because if we do it, there may not be anybody left in the stores. It's so aggravating. I can tell you, it's painful, right? When I bought our first store, on the marketing side, we're doing quality control on the phone calls, all right? And I'm listening. This is first week, and I'm listening. I've got a managing partner, and I'm listening to these calls, and they're brutal. And I'm like, how? We're not going to sell anything. And of course, and we'll blame it on the marketing or whatever. I'm sending him these recordings. All right. after a week, and by the way, I would never recommend this, and I definitely don't do it now. I would after about a week, Joe, my partner, goes, Scott, you gotta quit sending me these recordings. I can't do it. I find myself preaching instead of teaching because they were so bad, so brutal. So I mean, to me, there's a big advantage by having an outside company listen to that and then make a recommendation. First off, it probably takes some of the emotion out of it. That would be one thing, but then it just gets down to the solutions only, and you can dive into that. So that's funny. We were talking about that. Brought that back up to me. Where do you guys feel like dealers, and we'll start wrapping this up, but where do you guys feel like dealers waste a lot of time in fixed ops?
Where do we begin?
Just name the top ones.
So there's many layers to it, right? So I work with dealers that, when we first begin, there's a lot of time and energy spent on, we're not hitting our numbers. We're not hitting our numbers. We're not hitting our numbers. They spend so much time chasing this rabbit around the track, is what I like to call it. And so I start asking questions. Well, tell me how you formulate your budgets. Tell me how you formulate what the expectations are. Well, we take what we did last year. We add 10% to it. They should be able to do 10% more every year, right? There's no science behind it. And they spend more. They spend a lot. Not anybody in this room, but they spend a lot of time on not accomplishing business goals because they're not setting realistic business goals to begin with, right? So there's so much energy spent on having negative conversations with managers as opposed to setting realistic expectations and helping them to achieve them, right? I also see dealers wasting a lot of time. I go back to Jack's comment, people, right? Even still today, as much as we've improved, we're still hiring square pegs and round holes, right? And then trying to spend a lot of time understanding why it is their turnover rate so high, when in reality, there's not a good onboarding process, so people don't know what to do, when to do it, how to do it. So they don't have people feeling comfortable, and when people don't feel comfortable, they generally stop showing up. Those are some of the things I see a lot. And again, our teams help with that, and we're quite good at it.
Nice. Let me ask you, what do you guys see on the horizon? Any new developments that you're like, all right, this is coming? We brought it up from a retention standpoint, which I think really hits home on this question. When you talk about, I'm selling outside of market, so not all my customers are local, which obviously impacts fixed. I'm selling a lot more used cars than new in terms of the ratio than in a normal market condition. That's going to impact retention. But what else outside of things that might be pandemic related, all right, or inventory shortage related, if we're in a normal market, what do you guys see on the horizon that's coming, and we've got to take care of it, or at least have a plan for it?
Well, for sure, the push for electric, that's coming.
Yeah.
And many manufacturers are, whether we're federally mandated or the manufacturers just pushing it, that's going to rock our world from front door to back door. They're not going to be traditional, obviously, combustion type automobiles. So we're going to have a different myriad of being able to fix the car, not fix the car, replacing parts. Is it a computer flash versus changing out rebuilding a transmission or whatever. So that's going to affect us really from front door to back door, and we've got to prepare for that. Charging stations, you name it. I don't even know if we've considered the whole thing yet of how that's going to really change our dynamic of our business.
Yeah, no, that's a great point.
I think it
Go
goes
ahead.
back to what you said earlier too about, are we arrived? No, because it's always changing, right? So if EVs are coming at us, how are we going to make it in the EV world in service, right? So that opens up a whole suite of opportunities and possibilities, right? So is it, we got to get really good at detailing. We got to get really good at tires and brakes and so there's going to be, as this thing unfolds in front of us, if we keep our eyes not only on today but on the horizon, we're going to be able to continue to take advantage of these things. But you gotta certainly look for them.
It's funny because if you look at most dealers from a branding aspect, we have allowed other competing Carvanas of the world, CarMaxes of the world, to brand themselves as acquisition centers. Dealers have become very good at it in the last 12 months out of need, right? We have to acquire more vehicles. So we've all done a better job of making our presence known that, hey, we want to buy your car. We'll give you cash for your car. We'll pay you more for your car. Here's a center location for that basically a system or a process in place to acquire as many vehicles as we can. I think on the fixed ops side, that is tires. Tires are going to be there on electric vehicles just the same they are now. And I also think it's going to replace oil changes, because this is something that Dave Boyle says a lot. If you listen to anything he has to say, but tires coincide right when the warranty usually expires. It's usually the big expense that they've got to come out of pocket for. And the problem is, just like dealers prior to the pandemic never marketed or branded themselves as acquisition centers, no one thinks it's the dealer is the tire center as well. We've allowed people to kind of steal our milk money a little bit from that sense as well. So if we take the same approach we've done on acquisition to tires, I think there's a big opportunity there. What's your thoughts on that?
Scott, I'll agree with you 100% that is something, any type of that maintenance, the shocks, the struts, those suspension type of work on those. But really what's going to, in my opinion, the thing that scares me the most is you're going to have to take a whole workforce of people that are used to working, as Mark put it, on combustion engines and change them to electric. And we're going to have a lot of these younger guys that are spending days and weeks in classes and in training and learning how to do these things. I mean, if we take our two Chevy stores, there's two EV guys at those stores. Both of those places employ 17, 18 mechanics. So in 5 years, it's going to have to be the reverse.
Yeah.
So it is something, but that is also going to drive that business back to us, because there isn't the independent that's going to be doing that. They're not going to have the same availability that we're going to have, because not only because is it the right thing to do, but we have access to that training.
Yeah.
And we've been, we've been in line for a long time, and this is something that I really see that is going to help that move, because people aren't going to be able to see as many independents. Are there going to be some that take the bull by the horns? Yes, but when we get down to these EVs and these electric cars, the ones at Kia are different than the ones at GM. You can't just flip flop from one to the other. It's not like changing a spark plug or a coil.
Can I just tag in really quick on the tire conversation, Jack? Great point. I agree with you that it's going to become very specialized. Tires are going to be one of those commodities that on every vehicle are going to wear. And Scott, to your point, dealers haven't done a good job in really branding themselves as the place to come and get tires. But one of the things that I see in my travels is, dealers haven't gotten in the tire business, right? So they say they want to change tires. And we know that there isn't anybody in the world that budgets to replace their tires. They don't start putting money away the first day they buy the car to spend the $1,000 on a set of tires. And so when we get to that point, we start having that conversation with the guest, and we want to present them, and the guest says yes. We say, great, today's Monday, I'll have your tires in on Saturday. The reason we don't sell as many tires is because, number one, we don't present it the right way. We don't get the guest involved. And lastly, when we do have that sale as an industry, not again, as an industry, we don't have the tires in stock, and therefore we can't make the sale today because it goes back to that convenience factor. We make it inconvenient for the consumer to want to do the business with us.
Yeah.
It's just, we've got to stock them, and we've got to work with our tire suppliers to make sure we've got the right ones in stock for our brands.
Mark, Ray, you got any thoughts on that?
Well, for sure, stocking of the product is got to happen. So we can't stock everything. But in regard to tires, and it kind of is a gateway to look over the automobile. So front end alignments and all of those things, we just better embrace it in our stores, which we do. Our tire sales are okay; they could always be better, but we have embraced that. We're multi-point inspections and tires and front end alignments. Those are all things that are so important right now, but they're going to be ultra important going forward for sure.
Scott, like anything else, you got to make it part of the process. If you make tires part of your process, you'll have some success. And we've made that part of our process, and we've had some success with tires.
All right. Well, guys, I want to thank you. I want to thank Robert, Mark, Ray, Jack for an outstanding interview. There has to be, if someone's listening and can't take some of this stuff and immediately apply it to their own business situations, they might be in the wrong industry. So I think you guys got specific on some stuff, and I love some of the things that you guys brought up, some of the potential challenges coming on the horizon there. It's a few things that we need to think about and actually start taking action on now. So, Robert, tell us a little bit. You guys have got a free guide that you guys offer on your website, a free guide to dealership growth in 2022. We're going to put the link on Move Crush Count, but I'm going to put it up here as well. You can go to jmagroup.com. You can get this free guide. Can you just give us a real quick elevator pitch as to what's in there?
So it's a great guide to help the business operators really understand some of the steps that they can take to help grow their business, retain more guests, sell more cars, and make more money. At the end of the day, that's what we're all in business for. And by all means, if you ever need some help reading that guide, they can just reach out to me, and I'll help them go through it page by page.
All right. So again, thank you, Robert, Mark, Ray, and Jack for sharing with us. I want to thank the MCC Nation for joining us for this interview on how you can get better results with fixed ops and how to turn your top challenges into opportunities fast. I'm Scott Joseph. Thanks again for joining us on Move Crush Count. Make sure you follow Move Crush Count on YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. You can join our groups on Facebook and LinkedIn, where our experts like Mark, Ray, Jack, and Robert are there. If you pop in some questions there, they can answer them directly. And visit movecrushcount.com for more, and make sure you subscribe so you can get notified on future guests and new episodes. Today's interview is sponsored by J&L Marketing, a digital and direct marketing agency that helps you outsmart your competition and stop overspending so you can enjoy the excitement that comes when you move the crowd, crush the competition, and count the money. Have a nice day, everyone.
You as well.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all.